97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Adam Caplan.
I have real confidence that our football operations can once again create a dominant football team.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Dr. Lyle M. Back. For everything from skincare to cosmetic surgery, go to ilovelyle.com, 856-MAKEOVER, or for Dr. Lyle M. Back, proud sponsor of Football at 4. Football at 4 drops Mondays and Thursdays at 6 a.m. One of the hosts of that show is Adam Caplan, along with Jeff Mosher, and Adam Caplan joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline and live on our video stream at 973ESPN.com. Adam, happy Friday to you, pal.
Hello, boys. The Wentz saga is over. Deshaun Jackson, I just put out there, was told that they're going to release him, so we could update that. And I'm just glad we have a resolution to the Wentz situation. And obviously we're going to get into that because fans are up in arms. They wanted this thing over. You know, you guys are on the radio every day. And looking at my social media, I think there was a sense of relief around the Delaware Valley in New Jersey and over the bridge that Carson Wentz will no longer be an Eagle starting on March 17th.
Yep, it finally happened. So it ends up being the Colts. And I know that you guys at Inside the Birds kind of felt that that was the spot. Why was it that you were so sure and that it ended up being the Colts? Because, Adam, it sounded like it was the Colts and only the Colts.
Yeah, it's funny. So Mosher says to me last week, he goes, listen, is this going to get done? So Jeff, he's not coming back. But I said, here's the thing. I don't know. I thought it was going to be done already. I don't know exactly what day it's going to be. You know, people want answers. I don't know what day it's going to be. But I said, he's going to go to Indy. I don't know when it's going to be. So why the Colts? It wasn't just that Carson preferred there. That's true. He never dictated anything, but why he went there is because they offered the best deal. They were the only team to offer something tangible. That's based on what you were saying. You're correct. They made the offer. That's why the Bears, as I reported yesterday, backed out. They actually, I'm told they backed out last week. So it was only the Colts. But what would have happened, though, guys, if Chris Ballard, the general manager, said, you know what, I want to wait? What would have Howie Roseman done? Nothing. He would have nothing in hand. He would have to wait. So if the Colts did not agree and the Eagles did not agree on Thursday to this deal, this thing could have gone to the draft, but they've got a deal.
All right, so people, some people think that they had a horrible deal. Some people look at it and say, okay, you got what you could get. I mean, in the end, if you only had one team, what was Roseman to do? I mean, this was it. Did he get enough knowing that he was kind of backed into a corner?
Yeah, and I strongly disagree with people who said he should have waited closer to the draft. No, there was never even let me get into something. So let me just address why, because this plays into what you and I are talking about. Wentz wanted out in a pretty significant way. They knew this. It was not going to get better. They thought early to mid-January it might get better. It wasn't just that they fired Doug Peterson. Doug and Carson had no relationship to end the season. We reported first on Inside the Birds a month ago that they barely spoke the final 2 months. So that was part of it, his issues. But the real issues were just that he wanted to move on. He wanted to go somewhere if he could to be with a club that kind of understood him. But here's the thing. Unless you find him a team, and Chicago's another one where he had John DeFilippo as quarterback coach, their teams had enough information. Jeff and I talked about this week on Inside the Birds, that teams, Mike, they gather their own information on players. They knew that there's some specific challenges with Wentz. He's not the same player he once was in 17. For goodness sake, folks, he got benched. Do you really think they should get a true first-round pick for this season? No, the guy got benched. Who in the world? What team would give them a first-round pick for the season? The answer is nobody would. And I would agree with the assessment. They got what they could.
Yeah, I agree completely. And speaking of Wentz and the struggles, do you think that he can regain his talent with the new team?
I do, in this sense, Hunter. He's with Frank Reich, a guy that he had a very close working relationship with. I understand that Reich was not his day-to-day coach. The quarterback coach was DeFilippo. But Reich was in every meeting. He knows the way that he was coached. He knows there's a certain way he needs to be coached. They have to rebuild him from the ground up. That's got to happen. And I do think now could he get back to 2017 level? That's going to be really, really difficult. I mean, you had everything going on right. That is an elite level. That's going to be hard for him to do. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's going to take some time, and I don't know that could even happen this season.
Adam, okay, so he goes to the Colts. That's where he ends up wanting to go. But why ultimately did Carson Wentz no longer want to be here? I feel like, hey, Peterson was gone, and he still wanted out. So why ultimately did he really want out of here?
It's because, Mike, he had so many different issues. It was the Jalen Hurts decision in terms of drafting him in the second round. It was, you can go back to 2017, as one source said to me, that should have been his Super Bowl. It got cut short by the injury. He never could play at that elite level again. He felt the lack of organizational support. You're talking about a situation where people are taking shots at him behind his back, being asked about his work ethic. The shrine built, as another source said to me, that should have been his statue, not Foles and Doug Peterson's. Should have been, obviously, Peterson and Wentz, but Carson wasn't healthy. So you fast forward it over the last 2 years, being challenged in the media by being asked about his work ethic. The NFL.com report by my friend Michael Silver. So then the unnamed sources about the players taking shots at him behind his back. If you look at everything, the litany of issues, I'm told that he made it very clearly and strongly to Howie Roseman and others, he wanted out. There was no form that he had to fill out online. Okay, I want out. I'm requesting a trade. It doesn't work like that. You just told him privately he wanted out. And they knew there was a point of no return. It was not going to stay. He had to go. They know it, and it was going to be painful, and it's going to be painful against the Cap.
Yeah, it's crazy that we are here today. It's so surreal. But you mentioned Jalen Hurts. What is the future at the quarterback position for next season?
Yeah, Hurts right now, the way the Eagles look at it is like this. They're expecting him to be the starter of the season. Why? They want to give him a chance to start. He's a second-round pick. We said it at the time. You don't draft second-rounders to be backups. However, as it was explained to me privately yesterday, no one is going to be told that they have to play Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts does not win the job, let's say he's going in as the start in the offseason. But if he doesn't perform well in practice, they're going to add two quarterbacks, by the way, one in the draft, I suspect, and one in free agency. If somebody beats him out, then that's it. Again, folks, there's a new coaching staff. There's no allegiance to this quarterback. He's now a second-year player in the National Football League with a new coaching staff. They don't know this guy. He doesn't know them. So he's got to get off to a good start. We hope, folks, that we have an offseason. Right now, we don't know if we're going to have one.
I know a lot of people just assume that you have a situation that Roseman, doesn't get that he didn't get along with Roseman. How much of that played a factor in that Wentz also, saying, look, you got rid of Peterson, not enough. Roseman, I also like. In other words, it seems that could not have been salvaged either. That getting rid of Peterson simply just wasn't enough. That Roseman is also part of the reason why Wentz wanted to get out of here.
Well, I know this. They didn't have a great relationship. I'll leave it at that. Where they're getting too deep into the woods about exactly what the issues were. We don't have an hour. There are a lot of people he had issues with. Wasn't just the head coach. It wasn't just Roseman. It was just all the negativity, I think, as one source said, just built up on him, and he had enough, and he wanted out. I mean, Mike, I don't know how to say it other than that.
Yeah. Well, and
it just built up over a period of time.
So I asked you that for this because I figured, hey, look, they didn't get along. That's what it is. It is what it is. That happens. But how much of this then, is on Wentz to not, there's some reports this morning that they didn't talk to Peterson for weeks, 10 weeks. I mean, that sounds almost outrageous.
Well, we reported it. They barely spoke over the final 2 months. It's next to impossible to know if they spoke or not unless you talk to Wentz or you talk to Peterson. But I do know this in our reporting. We said it early January, either right after Doug got fired or right before it. They didn't have a relationship anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, that when you don't have a relationship with a play caller / head coach,
yeah, you
got a real problem. I don't know how you go on with that. If if you don't have a relationship with your coach, the guy who's calling the plays, and the head coach who's the same guy, it's hard to go forward.
So now you look at the state of this roster after he leaves and now this is left. It assumes that almost universally, Adam, everybody feels this team is in a rebuild. Do the Eagles feel that way?
They do, to a certain extent. I don't know if it's, as one source said, not totally, it's not a complete rebuild, but it's a rebuild. And I know organizationally they've talked privately about how they know they need to get younger, and it's got to happen this year. No, stop talking about they actually got to do it. That's why Jackson's going to be gone. Jeffrey's going to be gone. Malik Jackson's probably going to be gone, and others. It's going to get significantly younger. Don't worry about the record, folks. It's going to be a tough year, but they're going to get younger, and a lot of young kids under this new coaching staff, by the way, they're going to have to develop.
How about Zach Ertz? What do you think his value is going to be if traded?
4th round pick. He won't be. Guys, he's not going to be an Eagle. Whether it's in a week from now, 6 months from now, he's not going to be an Eagle. Dallas Goedert's the guy, tight end. They know that. Zach's been a Hall of Fame player, Hall of Fame person for this organization. Look for him to be playing elsewhere next year.
You know, it's funny because we had John Clayton on Tuesday's show, and he said same thing. You know, Seattle would love him, but it's going to have to be for a 4th round pick. They don't have a 1st and a 3rd.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, because, well, I'd asked someone with another team, I said, what do you think this guy's worth based on your tape study? Because I know this one team I talked to about tight ends had already looked at the tight end position, specifically Ertz, of all the players they knew were available. And they said, look, he maybe has 2 years left in him, and you don't give up a lot for a guy who's now 30 years old at that position. You just don't. But he's coming up, by the way, that was a pretty bad high ankle, I'm told. That was a pretty significant injury.
Well, and one of the things John said is there's going to be a lot of talent on the free agent market. So to pay a guy $8.25 million, they're not going to want to give up a whole heck of a lot because they can get a guy pretty cheap to play that position. So, but Ertz is interesting because you wonder, okay, we hear all about how dysfunctional and the problems this organization seems to have, but like you got guys like Ertz and some of these others who love it here. They didn't want to leave. So it would be like, was it so bad that some of these guys, they don't want out? They like it here. When did it get so bad? Was it bad in 18, 19? Was it just bad because they lost last year?
I would say 19, because the roster wasn't great, and Wentz did an incredible job of closing the season. But the thing, it's an interesting story, Mike, that you bring this up. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a little story here. When the Eagles traded for Jay Ajayi, they knew there was some baggage there with Ajayi and Adam Gase, the then Dolphins head coach. And the Eagles knew that things were so good, you got to be careful because they made the trade. They made the trade during the trade deadline of 2017, and they made a decision to go for it, just to do it and not worry about it because the locker room chemistry was so great. Well, as one Eagles source said to me, he goes, "Listen, dude, when you see your quarterback playing at elite level, MVP type level, you don't want to be the guy to bring the team down. When the team stinks, that's when everybody chirps. That's when everything's bad. And that to me, that's what 2020 was all about. A lot of people had a lot to say that shouldn't have said anything, quite frankly, with that football team. But it happened, and it got out there. You saw all the reports that came out. Some also with Wentz, like he wasn't quoted, but it came from either his people or Wentz himself anonymously about Carson wanting out and all that. We know what happened, and I could tell you that the coaches there, as a coaching source said to me, not real happy that that stuff came out when they're trying to save their jobs.
You mentioned Ertz, but Jackson, he's going to be released. Malik Jackson. What about others? Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Brandon Brooks, Lane Johnson.
Not going. Zero chance he's going anywhere. The cap hit would be so catastrophic. It's just I look. They just did it with Wentz when they didn't really want to do it, but they had to.
The veteran guy, but some of the older veterans on this team.
Yeah. No, Ertz, I fully expect to be gone. Okay, I fully expect him to be gone. The never say never categories will be Fletcher Cox. I've learned my lesson. You put an asterisk. Hey, listen, minuscule chance that he's gone, but I don't see it due to the cap hit. Other than that, they're locked in with Lane Johnson's contract. We reported last March that Brandon Brooks has a $10 million guarantee in his contract. That was guaranteed last March. $10.4 million is fully guaranteed. He's not going anywhere. They're not walking away from that money. There are not many guys you could cut because Lane's coming off surgery, and he's also got a contract that's been restructured too much. Really, that's Alshon Jeffrey would be gone, as I mentioned. Marquise Goodwin, his contract tolls. There's an outside chance he comes back at a lesser salary, but with D-Jack's gone, he's been told he's gone, as we noted. With Alshon's going to be gone, Malik Jackson's going to be gone. There are not a lot of guys left. There's just some contracts, quite frankly, that they're locked into.
Right. Well, and then they're so far over the cap, you wonder if those veterans who make more money aren't going to be gone. How do they get under this cap?
Well, no, what you do is you're going to cut some veterans. They did that interesting restructure with Alshon's and Malik Jackson's contracts to save more cap space. You're going to start doing extensions, like Derek Barnett's contract, for instance. Very little chance he plays at his fifth-year option of $10 million. So what they'll do is they'll either cut him, or they'll extend his contract, or they'll trade him. He's not going to play at $10.05 million. It's just not going to happen. Mm-hmm. His base salary becomes fully guaranteed of $10.05 million on March 17th. So they've got until then to do something about it. So they'll cut his cap number down. So what you're going to do is you could extend to cut down the first year. That's what you do with extensions. You severely cut down their cap number. So they're going to do a lot of work. The Wentz, by the way, Wentz was number one on their board to take care of. Jackson's next. Deshaun Jackson, who was informed Friday he won't be back. And then they're going to keep working their way out over the next 4 weeks until March 17th. They'll get there, folks.
Yep. Well, they have to. They don't have a choice.
The way it works, yes. It's not like you can get there and then get close. No, you have to be at cap compliance. And they'll get the final cap number over the next couple of weeks, which is being reconciled within the NFL and the NFLPA.
And how much of that, Adam, does Laurie look at it and say, look, we got this cap problem. There's one guy that can get us out of it. I can't bring some random Joe in here to try to fix that. The guy to get us out of the problem is Roseman.
Well, look, Howie's the general manager. This is his job. And now he's done some things with the cap since Joe Banner left that Joe would not have done. You've heard my friend Andrew Brandt talk about it. It's the same thing the Steelers do, the Saints do, is you restructure to create cap space in your current year, but you kick the can down the road. It works as long as you don't have to cut players. Once you start cutting players, you get massive cap charges. That's what's going to happen with the Eagles when they start cutting these veterans. And their cap situation is going to be hard. This is going to be a very late year for them in free agency. That's just the way it is. And by the way, that's the way it should be. They need to start nailing these drafts and get significantly younger, and they're going to do that.
Yeah, and I know Joe, who was on Inside the Birds with you guys, had said, like, and Laurie alluded to this, that they went for it. So they did some things that were kind of non-Eagles-esque, like signing a guy like Deshaun Jackson. They probably don't do that if they're not, quote-unquote, going for it.
Agree, and I don't see it happening. A couple cases are going to have to do it just to get under the cap. They don't have much of a choice. I mean, you got to field a football team. Brandon, people keep asking about Brandon Graham. I know it's a big number. He's got a significant cap number. That one, I know they don't want to cut him, but his cap number is just under $18 million, $13 million base salary. I hope they don't cut him. I'm not saying they're going to, but it's a big number for a guy in his 30s. He's still a great player and one of the best D linemen in Eagles history. That one, keep an eye on. It'll be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see whether they allow him to play at that cap number at $17.928 million.
All right, we'll leave you with this. Wentz is traded. We think Ertz will possibly be cut or traded. Anybody else you see as a trade possibility for Howie Roseman?
Keep an eye on Derek Barnett. The Eagles had interest. I reported that the Seahawks called about him at the trade deadline. The Derek Barnett's one to keep an eye on. We already talked about Malik Jackson, who's not expected to remain with the football team. Rodney McLeod. Rodney's coming off a torn ACL. He does have his cap numbers fair, $5.2 million. They need to make a decision on him whether they want to have him back. Great leader, been a great signing by the Eagles going back to 2016. We mentioned Alshon's gone. I mean, I don't know who else we could talk about that we haven't talked about at this point.
All right, there you go. So a couple of names to keep an eye on that could be on the way out. We'll have more on that as free agency creeps its way this way. Keep Inside the Birds podcast Monday, Thursday, 6 a.m. The new one will drop on Monday, and I'm sure more things will happen over the weekend.
Oh, we got a big announcement. We're good. Under the Inside the Birds umbrella, we got a major announcement coming. We're bringing another new show in. Can't tell you what it is, but folks, you're going to love this one. We had a pretty cool conference call with. I don't want to give it away. This one's going to be another big bombshell we're going to drop next week in terms of who's going to be working with us. It's going to be pretty cool. Really cool. We're going to continue to expand the brand of Inside the Birds, and we also want to thank you guys for our relationship with you. We've really enjoyed it.
Yes, it's been fantastic. Looking forward to this announcement. So check out Inside the Birds for that. And, of course, Monday, Jeff Mosher will be here. Anything new happens, Football at 4 and the Inside the Birds podcast will have it covered. Adam, have a great weekend, man.
Thank you, guys.
All right. He is Adam Caplan from Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com, and he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And, of course, Inside the Birds is brought to you by ILoveLyleBack.com. Call 856-MAKEOVER for Dr. Lyle M. Back, proud sponsor of Football at 4.